Liftoff of mission 41D, first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
All right, guys, welcome to Health or High Water. I am Trip. I'm sorry, guys, that Brett is out today. He's a little sick. He decided to jump in the river in the middle of November. That rhymed. But he's not with us today as I'm trying to undo this cable and trying to talk at the same time. I think I'm doing a pretty good job here, but
Oh, yeah.
trying. All right, so we want to thank our sponsors here. Actually, I want to thank the listeners first. You guys are the ones that make this thing groovy and go. I can't believe I said groovy. This is what makes the podcast grow, and I would just appreciate all of our hardcore listeners out there. Thank you guys for the 5-star rating. You know, we got some new states that are coming in. We got some new countries, so thank you guys so much. Now we want to thank our sponsors. We got O2 Boost. You guys are awesome. These are pills you can take that have oxygen in them. We want to thank Colorado Labs, our supplement sponsor. We want to thank You vs. You, our clothes sponsor. We also want to shout out to Nikki Burnett and Taste Life Nutrition. We just partnered up with them, as well as I'm just giving a quick shout out to Hyperspeed. I got some announcements coming out with them. They're an amazing company using AI to help with health solutions. And then finally, we want to thank Gene Planet, our genetic testing company we use. You guys are freaking awesome. And I've got a very special guest here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So can you give me a little bit about you, what you do, and then kind of your journey and story to get here?
Yeah, all right. My name is Starlyn Haneman, and I am a health and wellness coach for women. I help them with guilt, anxiety, and stress, and help them to improve their lives mentally and physically so they can feel in control again.
Nice.
And that comes from my own story and journey of struggling with guilt, anxiety, and stress and feeling completely out of control. So...
Well, I know you got quite the story about your journey, especially through COVID, getting sober and whatnot. So what was the journey like for you to get to this point right now?
All right. Well, I've always had I can't say always. I was raised in a household that nutrition was a big focus. No sugar was allowed. My mom ground her own wheat and made bread and lots of vegetables. So nutrition was a big thing my whole life. So of course I rebelled against that as soon as I moved out because I wasn't allowed Captain Crunch and, all of the junk food.
Right.
So I immediately was living off of Taco Bell and would eat boxes of Captain Crunch and living my very best life. And of course drinking lots of beer because I had moved out of the house and could do what I wanted. And then I went down a 10-ish year journey of kind of living like that. I was a motorcycle mechanic, so it was lots of partying and just kind of living that lifestyle. And then I decided I wanted to go back to school, and I went to school for food science and human nutrition.
Nice.
And along the way, wound up getting married and pregnant and kind of put school on the back burner, went back to school, and then realized I really did not want to tell people what to eat. But I needed to figure out a way to help people. And at this point, I was drinking, looking at health through a different lens than I do now. And I did some moving, finally moved back to Colorado, and was in a really bad place with anxiety. And I didn't realize it was anxiety at the time. So I think I dealt with it for years, but I was covering it up with drinking, just trying to cope. And the moving really kind of brought everything to the surface of realizing life was really hard for me. So I went to the doctor and I got anxiety medication and I hated it. I didn't feel like me. There were some side effects that were less than pleasant that they did not tell me about. And I was like, man, I really got to make some changes. So I went ahead and started reading self-help books, which had not been a part of my life before, but I really dove into the self-help world and decided to try meditation and journaling, which was so far out of the realm of anything that I wanted to do ever. I hated that. Slowing down was not my thing. I always wanted to go faster. Drinking and cocaine, those were my jam back in the day. I wanted to do things fast. And so meditation seemed terrible. So I wound up delving into that world and meditating every night, writing in a gratitude journal. And then one day I just quit drinking. And I didn't intend to quit drinking. It was like, I think I'm just going to stop this for now. And every day was just a new day. And then all of a sudden it was like a month later, and my husband's like, "Are you ever going to drink again?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I kind of like this." And lucky for me, this was 2019. November 9th is like my quit date, I guess, that I keep track of. But it was before COVID hit. And I am so glad, because I would have been that mom who was probably drinking at 10 a.m. trying to survive children at home all day, every day.
Well, what a timing for that then, you
It
know?
was the best timing. Like, I am so thankful that I was able to like make that happen without, it wasn't intentional. It just happened, and I am grateful.
Well, I want to apologize to you and the listeners about this leaf blower that's going on right now. It's just like literally right next to the window. But that's interesting. That's interesting because like there's a lot of us that did take COVID the right way and tried to make the best out of it, and some people that got sicker or got worse about their habits or doubled down on their bad habits, and then I think there's been almost like a health awakening. Post COVID, like, hey, like let's we were not being as healthy as we should have been. Exercise being taken away from us, not being able to go to the gym and whatnot. So during COVID, what did you how did you set yourself up for where you're at right now?
So, honestly, it was like a total reframing of my mindset and how I looked at health, because before I don't know when the transformation happened. It was so gradual. Everybody looks at these transformations of like before and after, and I don't know when that transformation exactly happened. But it was that slowing down that allowed that to happen for me. And I wound up going to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. It was 2020 I started, because I needed to do something that was going to help people. And I felt like becoming a health coach could help people through helping them explore their own situation rather than me telling them what to do. Like, as a registered dietitian, telling you what to eat. I wanted to help people like take that control into their own hands. But for me, like along that journey, it was reframing my need for a gym and needing to look a certain way, and looking at exercise as my mental health care, and not using it to look a certain way. It was how do I want to feel? And I knew if I exercised, I felt good. I knew if I meditated, I felt good. And it was the feeling good that propelled me forward and kept me on track, rather than needing that. I've been doing this for a week and nothing's changed. And that was everything.
I love that so much, because that should be first, is your health, not aesthetics, right? Like that's something that, like we teach here is like, listen, let's just get you feeling better first. Let's look at your insides with blood work. Let's look at your DNA, but you're taking this as a mental approach.
Yeah, and in the beginning, I wasn't at all. Like,
Right.
I was so focused on getting that bikini body and like worried about the aesthetics, because as a woman in my 40s, like the time frame that I've been through, 90s, stick thin, like all these things, like it's all about how you look. And so we get that ingrained in us. And then it was like, oh, how I feel is actually like bringing about, whether it was true or not, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I look better. I feel more confident. And so it was taking that mental health approach, not even intentionally, like I wasn't going after that, but I knew that I didn't want to continue to feel the way that I felt, and I did not want to rely on medication to just sort of, I don't know, cover up the symptoms. I wanted to figure out what was actually causing it.
The why, that's such a big thing. Like what with something we talk about, it's like our current healthcare system is, you get sick, we heal you. It makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're at a point in time, like, we should be preventing things before they happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have this, like, I don't know if it's a soapbox or a theory or a thing, but like, I am not a therapist. I appreciate therapists. But I truly believe that if we took the mental health as like the very most important thing, we would not have the physical health issues we have. If people were not trying to numb out from trauma, and numbing out can look like alcohol, it can look like drugs, it can look like food, it can look like being completely sedentary and just kind of going into like that, like I can't move state. if we didn't have people trying to escape their feelings and their emotions through these unhealthy coping tools, we wouldn't have the healthcare crisis we have. So if we had more focus on the mental than the physical, I don't think would be as bad of where we're at. People wouldn't have the overeating, like I'm going to eat my feelings, because they would get that care.
And I think the perception's the biggest issue here too. Is perceptually, like you said before, like going to the gym for the right reasons. Like when you walk in the gym, you're not going in the gym to listen. Like I'm gonna kill it so I can look good for beach week. It's like no, I want to go in and feel good, and the aesthetic should come later.
Yeah.
So it's in a perceptually about how we live our lives too. It's like I think being being honest with ourselves is one of the hardest things we can do, right? Being honest with ourselves about, hey, my habits are not healthy. And I grew up in a household with some alcoholic uncles and whatnot, and I saw that firsthand, and I kind of experienced it. I was like, all right, well, there has to be limits to everything. And, some people don't have that. They don't have that, or that perception of what I'm doing is hurting other people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And a lot of these people's habits, even like we're talking about eating, like numbing yourself out, like if you're a parent and a kid watches you eat negatively, that's how they're going to learn how to eat.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I do agree. There's a lot of perceptual mental issues that could be solved with like finding a professional to help.
Yeah. As a mom, that was one of my driving forces. Like I had to take a really strong look at how are my actions, like what am I teaching my children, and so my kids were 7 and 5 when I quit drinking, and I was not a wake up in the morning and start drinking person. Like it wasn't an all day thing. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic or anything like that, but it was just really unhealthy how I was using it. By the end of the day, the kids irritate me, grab a beer. Like it was just like, oh, things feel hard, I'm going to have a beer. And we live in Colorado. Beer is sort of like everywhere. I mean, Fort Collins that's what everyone does. You go to the brewery, you drink beer, and that's just how, you take the kids. It's a family affair.
Yep.
And so that was just part of it. But I was like, man, do I want my kids to see me dealing with stress through drinking? Like, that's really unhealthy. And now it's like, okay, I don't want my children to ever, because I have 2 girls, I don't want them to think that motherhood is martyrdom, where you have to suffer in order to be a mother. So they see me taking care of myself. They walk in the mornings and I'm working out and I'm meditating and I'm doing, EFT tapping, and they see me doing these things, and they know that if they come into, while I'm meditating, to sit down, they're quiet, they'll meditate with me. So it's like they're modeling that. They come in when I'm working out, they know to kind of stay out of my way, but they'll start doing push-ups or trying to do bicep curls, and they're seeing that. And I talk very openly about why I'm in there. This helps me to be a better parent, and they know that.
Well, I agree. It's a lot of parenting is monkey see, monkey do, and doing actions first. That's the first step of conditioning for a child, is watching and learning and then applying.
Yes.
It's ingrained in us.
Yes.
And I grew up in a household where it was mom would smoke throughout the day, and she would have her glass of wine every day, and just so stressed out. And then I was like, I don't want that. And I think that's hard for some especially kids to understand that perception of like being able to choose that. Mm-hmm. It's ingrained in them. Like, listen, this is just how adults are, because they don't see anything different. Typically, when you have parents like that, they're in environments of other people doing the same, same drinking habits, a little harder and whatnot. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it really is a conditioning statement of being an actionable parent about doing the right things, and not just for yourself, if not do it for your kids, to make sure that they're learning how to be a proper adult.
Yeah, I don't want them to ever think that they, do I expect that they'll drink? Yes. But I want them to be able to do it from a fun, enjoyable, social sort of thing, not a survival tool.
Right.
I haven't drank in 4 years, and I don't really want to. Do I sometimes be like, oh man, nice beer out on the patio just to be able to do that? But I'm also like, I'm a better person without it. And that's me personally. I don't ever expect anyone else to do that. But I think we all are so individual in what is good for us, and mentally, physically, that we need to look at each individual person in that way. But I want my kids to know that I go for walks every day. I walk probably 3 to 5 miles a day with the dog, but that's my sanity. That's It's my sanity stroll, I call it. And it's like,
like
I'm gonna
that.
I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna go and like just like kind of like regroup. And so now my walking is my, I don't know, my stress relief instead of drinking. I walk. And they know that. They'll be like, "Can I come with you?" And I'll be like, sometimes I'm like, "Sure." And other times I'm like, "No, I just need quiet time."
I need me time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in my book, I wrote that the gym is my therapist, my preacher, and my my bartender all in one. Because you go there, like, especially if you're in the right frame of mind of taking all the bad things that happen. Like, listen, I'm going to take this out in the right way. Go to the gym and just kill it. Like, listen, like, this is how I should be letting my emotions out healthily. And a lot of kids growing up, and this is something I'm really passionate about, is youth sports programs. A lot of them are dying off, and it's one of the last bastions of ethics and community you can find. Trying to be part of a team sport, and it's just eroding away. So that's something I have been trying to work on is making sure that kids are healthy and they're staying in sports, and that there's programs that are offered for them. I mean, there's some schools in Colorado that don't have football programs or cheerleading programs, and I can't tell you what I've gotten from team sports growing up, and the ethics I've learned, the community, and that's it's all important. That's the environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
The environment is so huge.
Yeah, I can think back in high school and I played soccer, and when I quit playing soccer is when things started to go downhill for me. I opted out of playing soccer and decided I should smoke cigarettes and drink instead in high school, which I still graduated. I still did great. I was a good student, but I was making really bad choices. And I'm like, man, if I would have just stayed in sports, I bet things would have been a little bit different at that point.
Exactly, and then nowadays you have parents that are overtraining their kids or trying to do 3 or 4 different sports at once. They're overwhelmed with trying to do AP courses and all this other stuff when they're not really letting them be a kid.
Agreed. And I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, am I a lazy parent? Like just how I've parented my kids. Like I breastfed my kids because nutrition is great. Also, I didn't want to deal with cleaning bottles and formula and having to do all that. So it seemed like the easier route. I never gave them baby food. I just went straight to giving them solid foods and let them, like, I did a lot of research on, like, it's called baby-led weaning. But I was like, I don't want to deal with baby food. So it's like all of these parenting things have been like out of me not wanting to do more work. But I'm like, oh, in the long run, it's been more simple, like, and I like to enjoy my time, and having my kids involved in multiple things can be very stressful. But I think that, like, for me, a lot of my coaching is helping women with anxiety and stress. And we put ourselves like in this place where we have to keep up with everyone else. And it's like no one likes where they're at. They just keep doing more and more because they feel like they need to do more and more. And I'm like, let's bring it down. Let's keep it super simple and enjoy what we're doing. You don't have to do 700 things. Like, kids don't want to be running all the time. They want to chill out too.
Exactly. And I think a lot of us do that just to distract ourselves. Like we got so much going on. We're getting bombarded on our phones, emails, notifications. The kids are screaming. There's housework that needs to be done, bills that need to be paid, and we live in just such a fast-paced environment that I think we should speed up to try to almost like keep away from those issues. As stupid as it sounds, it's almost like giving Adderall to someone with ADHD. It's like you're giving speed to someone who's hyperactive. What?
Right.
So it's just interesting. And I know you're talking about you're writing a grateful journal, and that's something like I do every single morning. Like if I don't do that, I'm miserable throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So what was it like when you started? What would you write down when you started doing this? And what is a grateful journal like? What look like right now?
So when I started, it was like really basic. I got myself a composition notebook, and I would write down at nighttime. I'd go in my room and I would write 3 things I was grateful for. And then I would meditate for 15 minutes, and that was every single night. And I would just write down 3 things I was grateful for. And then now it's morphed into, in the morning, I wake up and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I kind of reflect on the day before, or like how I slept or anything like that. 3 things I'm grateful for, and then I write down 3 things that are going to make today a great day. And in that, I'm like looking forward to the things that I know I have control over and that I can make happen. It's not like, today I drove to Denver and I was like, I'm like, today's going to be a great day because I'm going to go record a podcast. But I didn't say like, today's going to be great if the traffic's good, because I have no control over that. The traffic was great, but I had the intention of like, I'm going to go record a podcast and it's going to be awesome. So having like those small things, sometimes it's just, I'm going to go walk and enjoy the weather. But it's like that little thing and being present in that moment. And I think being present is what so many people are lacking. And that's why so many people are unhappy and anxious.
Yeah, their mind's in the past or the future, and that's why the present's a gift.
Exactly. 100%. Right. Yeah.
And I think that's so important too, is just like starting the day off and ending the day off with kind of reflection or a projection about like, listen, I'm gonna go kill today. I don't care what, everything I can control, I'm gonna kill today. I'm gonna make those sales calls. I'm gonna make sure I'm getting my work done. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna eat right. All these things. It's just such a big component to overall health.
Oh, absolutely. Like controlling what you can control. But also like I've taken I don't know, I feel like as I've gone on this like path, I didn't realize it at the time. Like now I'm really into intuitive eating and I'm actually going to be doing a 2-week course on that after the beginning of the year.
Nice.
But I didn't realize it, but like my movement became very intuitive rather than like I love following a routine for like the gym. Like I love lifting weights. I love that. It feels like a challenge. It pushes me. It feels good. But I also have now learned to give myself grace, whereas before it was like, okay, I'm going to work out 4 days a week. And if something happened and I missed a day, I felt like the biggest piece of crap. Like I was like, I failed again. I can't do it. I always do this. I always let myself down. And it was a way for me to beat myself up. Now I just give myself grace and I'm like, hey, let's go ahead. And if I wake up and I'm like, I feel so tired, I allow myself to not get up. And then I just walk that day. I walk more. I mean, I always walk, but I walk more that day, or I don't worry about it. If I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I'm really sore, maybe I do some serious stretching. Or if I'm really anxious, yoga is so good. I hate doing yoga because it's slow, like I said. Like lifting weights feels like, for me. And yoga is like slowing down, but when I really don't want to slow down is almost when I know I need to slow down.
Right.
And it's like listening to that, meaning like maybe what I really need is yoga, but I don't have strict rules anymore. I have a plan that I'm going to follow, but when I don't, it's all good. And that has been like the biggest change. Now I don't feel like, oh, I fell off and then I just stop. Now I just keep rolling with the punches and just keep going. And now there isn't that feeling of I got to get back on and do it again.
I'm so glad you brought that up. We call that the hell loop, and the beginning of the hell loop is when like you miss that meal, then you miss the workout, and then you're like, oh, the whole day is. Yep. And if you want to cuss too on this program, you're more than welcome to.
Oh, the F-bomb is my very favorite word in the whole wide world.
You're allowed to fucking cuss on here.
All right.
But going through that, it's like you had that really shitty day, and you missed that meal, you missed that workout, you didn't get what you wanted to get done, and then that gives us an excuse to just go back to old habits. And then next thing you know, this 6 weeks to summer workout program you started doing just seems to fall apart. It's like, well, this is working for somebody else. It's because we're human. We make mistakes on a daily basis. To err is human, right? So I try to, when I'm talking to clients too that are going through this thing, like, oh, I've yo-yo dieted, and I'm yo-yo'd going to the gym and whatnot. It's like, well, have you ever just, given yourself a break? And people are kind of like, what? Like, you're supposed to be hard on yourself. And that's like a hardcore competitive athletic mindset, which that's that's a different day for that kind of stuff. But us, normal people that are just trying to stay healthy, just trying to go to the gym, they get that like in their brain, like, if I miss a day, like, I'm a screw up. Mm-hmm. When that's not the case. It's like there's always tomorrow. I mean, be aware of what you did, like the things that you can make better the next day. But there's some things you just can't control, and beating yourself up isn't the right path. It's
truly not. I call that the circle of suck, where it's like you start out, you got great big plans, and then something happens because life happens, and then you fall off, and then you got to start all over again, and you're just like, oh, I did it, I failed. I call it the circle of suck. So hell looper, yeah. it's the same concept. But I think it's the rules and restrictions. I hate rules and restrictions. I hate being told what to do. And I think when we put those rules and restrictions, like on eating, like you can't have that piece of cake. then we want that piece of cake so much we
Yep.
can't stop thinking about it. But when we take
It glorifies it almost.
it does. When we take those rules and restrictions off the table and allow ourselves anything, then it's no fun to do it, and it's not a big deal. It's like, oh, I can have that piece of cake. Okay, cool. And then you don't want it so bad. Then you're not like restricting and binging and restricting and binging in whatever aspect that is, whether it's food or, working out. And you push, and then you're like, oh God, I burned out. I suck. And then you just stop. And then you're like, okay, I got to get back on it. And then it's like almost harder that next time.
It
like,
really is.
It is.
And it's what was I going to say about that? It's almost like people think they have to start over, and it's not starting over. And that this goes with anything that you can put in quotations as failure. It's not starting over. You're just getting back going with more experience than you did when this last happened. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not. It's if you look at it as a lesson, it's never a failure.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the kind of mindset like we you're probably trying to teach here too. Is like, listen, like we're gonna have bad days. Let's go write down a grateful journal. Let's go try to reflect a little bit and try to let's see what we can do tomorrow to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And use it as a learning experience instead of a punishment. Mm-hmm. I think some people think punishment is a lesson, and it's not really how it is, right? It's like
punishment. I feel like we've got to stop punishing ourselves. Like we're beating ourselves up for being human, and it has to stop. But like you were saying, like the starting over, I love metaphors, and they usually involve like driving or something for whatever reason for me. But I always think of like if you set out on a road trip from like New York to LA, and let's just say you get going and you get a flat tire. You don't like just get your flat tire and be like, oh, and then go back to New York. Like you fix the flat tire, you move on with your day, and you keep going to LA. Like you're just on an adventure. It's just a traveling adventure, and bumps will happen. Flat tires will happen. Sometimes you take a scenic journey that makes you take longer, but then you have something that you can like hold on to later on. Be like, oh, that was actually a really cool experience, even though I went off of like the plan,
Exactly. And I know we're getting kind of towards the end here with it. I wanted to ask you about your business, what you're doing right now with coaching and what the future looks like for you.
Oh, the future, that's just uncertain. But right now I have been working with moms because that is just who I identify with, and I feel like it's a demographic that really needs some serious support. So I've been doing one-on-one coaching program, and I help people who are struggling with that guilt and that anxiety and that stress, and they don't know how to like bring in these like healthy lifestyle and make it sustainable. So I help them with simple and sustainable and getting rid of this restrictive mindset so that they can take control and feel good and then be those role models they want to be for their kids and show up as calm and patient parents. So that's my coaching and what I do. And then after the first of the year, I'm going to be offering an intuitive eating program where I help people to kind of ditch that diet mindset where you have to be restrictive. And so I'll be offering that. So if anybody wants to go to my website and get on my email list, as that gets closer, I'll be sending out information about that.
Awesome. What's the name of your business, and where can they find you?
My business name is Wholesome Rebel Wellness because I'm a rebel, so that's where that came from. And my website is wholesomerebelwellness.com, and then I am most active on Instagram, and that's just at Starlyn Haneman is my handle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We had an absolute blast. We have a lot of parallels with how we teach and mindset, and especially with the way we treat ourselves. And I just appreciate you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. All right. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, telling your friends, aunts, pigeons, cousins, best friend about this podcast, because we need everybody of you to help us out here. So thank you guys who are listening on a regular basis. Thank you guys for tuning in when you can. And thank you guys to the future viewers. Peace.